Welcome to When Gen X Ruled the Multiplex, the films that shaped the MTV generation. The 80s had their share of box office duds, like Dune, Ishtar, Heaven's Gate, Shanghai Surprise, and Solar Babies. But 1986's Howard the Duck has passed into legend for being a big-budget film with a lot of advance hype that critics and audiences absolutely loathed. Howard the Duck is often considered one of the worst films of all time. It was directed by Willard Huyck and written by Huyck and his frequent collaborator and wife, Gloria Katz. Huyck and Katz had attended USC's film school with George Lucas. They had co-written the screenplay for the 1973 comedy American Graffiti with Lucas, for which all three received an Oscar nomination. Lucas produced Howard the Duck through his production company, Lucasfilm. Huyck has not directed another feature film since the spectacular failure of Howard the Duck, though Huyck and Katz co-wrote the screenplay to the Lucas-produced murder mystery comedy Radioland Murders in 1994, which was another box office bomb. Despite its reputation, Howard the Duck is far from the worst film ever made. But it is an odd one. It's based on a Marvel comic book character created in 1973 by Steve Gerber. Gerber's Howard is an angry, beer-drinking, cigar-smoking, anthropomorphic duck from another planet who is in perpetual existential despair about his place in the universe. The appeal of the character is largely due to Gerber's distinct voice. And in translating Howard to the big screen and trying to turn this extremely niche source material into an action-packed, family-friendly comedic blockbuster, the whole point of this subversive and satirical character got lost along the way. We open in Marshington, D.C., a duck-themed parallel version of Washington, D.C., located on a far-flung planet. Inside an apartment, there are signs that things are very different here. Film posters, magazines, and family photos suggest that this world is populated by intelligent anthropomorphic ducks. We meet the resident of this apartment, Howard T. Duck, a young urban professional duck. Howard is played by, well, a lot of people. In addition to 5 credited puppeteers, 2 actors, Ed Gale and Jordan Prentice, took turns donning a meter-high duck suit, while theater star Chip Zien, who originated the role of the baker in Into the Woods on Broadway, provided Howard's voice. Prior to Howard the Duck's theatrical release, steps were taken to create an air of mystery around what Howard would look like in the finished film. Early trailers and marketing materials avoided showing Howard at all. Ed Gale has mentioned in interviews that despite playing the title role, he was not invited to attend the film's premiere. Gale is a person of short stature, and producers feared that as soon as people saw him on the red carpet, they'd draw the immediate conclusion that Howard is just a guy in a duck suit, and it would ruin the movie magic. Apart from being a crappy thing to do to Gale, who deserved to go to the premiere of his big Hollywood film, this was pretty optimistic of the producers, because when you watch the film, it is blindingly obvious that Howard is a guy in a duck suit. Howard settles in with a beer to watch TV, channel surfing through the usual mid-80s morass of soap operas and commercials about jock itch cream, only all of it is performed by ducks. He then turns his attention to the centerfold of Play Duck magazine. The ground begins to shake, and Howard is pulled straight through the walls of his apartment complex, sailing through the bedrooms and bathrooms of his various neighbors before being pulled up into the heavens. We do get to see duck boobs, if that's your particular fetish. He's sucked across the cosmos and hurtles through space until he ends up crashing in a back alley on Earth in Cleveland, Ohio. He's surrounded by menacing punks who pick him up and forcibly carry him into a nightclub where an all-girl band called Cherry Bomb is on stage singing Hunger City. Like all the songs in the film, Hunger City was written by synth-pop star Thomas Dolby, known for the hit single She Blinded Me with Science. Cherry Bomb is headed up by Beverly, played by 80s mainstay Lea Thompson, whom we just saw playing Marty's mom in Back to the Future. The other band members include keytar-playing Casey, played by Holly Robinson, now known as Holly Robinson Pete, in her feature film debut. She'd rise to fame in 1987 for playing Officer Judy Hoffs on Fox's 21 Jump Street. Another Cherry Bomber is drummer Ronette, played by Liz Segal, who along with her identical twin Jean was one of the Double Mint twins of 80s commercial fame. Liz and Jean also starred in the 1984 sitcom Double Trouble. Fun fact, the Segal twins are the younger sisters of Married with Children star Katie Segal. The final Cherry Bomber is bassist Cal, played by Dominique Davalos, whose band Dominatrix was known for the 1984 club hit The Dominatrix Sleeps Tonight. Howard runs from the punks and gets chased through the streets of Cleveland by an all-girl biker gang known as Satan's Sluts before falling into a garbage can. Post-gig, as Beverly walks through a dark alley, she's accosted by thugs. She's saved by Howard, who whips out some way cool quack fu moves and beats up her attackers. Beverly tells Howard he's landed in a place called Earth. Howard has nowhere to go, so Beverly invites him to stay with her in her gigantic apartment. Howard tells Beverly about his dream of becoming a musician, even though he has a dull day job in advertising advertising. When Howard drops off to sleep, Beverly rifles through his wallet and finds, along with his Blooming Ducks charge card, a tiny unwrapped duck-sized condom. I know the joke is the idea of a condom-wearing duck, but my brain gets stuck pondering how relaxed your hygiene standards have to be to think it's a good idea to carry around an unwrapped condom in your wallet. Beverly takes Howard to the Natural History Museum to meet her lab assistant friend Phil. Phil is played by Tim Robbins, who had had a small role in Top Gun, but would break through to widespread fame in the early 90s with starring roles in The Player, The Hudsucker Proxy, and The Shawshank Redemption. Phil badgers Howard with questions about the mysteries of his origins until Howard grows annoyed with Phil and with Beverly by proxy and storms off in a huff. Deciding to try to make it on his own, he gets a job as a towel boy in a sleazy massage parlor, but quits after his first day. Realizing that Earth can be a lonely place for a humanoid duck, he returns to the club near his original landing site and watches as Cherry Bomb performs 2 more Thomas Dolby songs, Don't Turn Away and It Don't Come Cheap. Howard eavesdrops on Cherry Bomb's sleazy manager Ginger, played by Tommy Swerdlow, who boasts about how he's been cheating the band out of their fair pay. Ginger's low-life friend Richie is played by original Sonic Youth drummer Richard Edson, whom we recently saw in Desperately Seeking Susan. Howard gets into a brawl with Ginger and forces him to agree to stay away from Cherry Bomb. Beverly takes Howard back to her place where she snuggles in bed with him. While Beverly does grow flirtatious, contrary to popular rumor, there is no duck-human sex in Howard the Duck. Though Howard's head crest does shoot up while Beverly is fondling him, which I guess means he popped a duck woody. Their shenanigans are interrupted by the arrival of Phil and a pair of scientists, Carter, who is played by Miles Chapin, and Dr. Jennings, an astrophysicist who works for a company named Dynatechnics. Dr. Jennings is played by Ferris Bueller's Day Off star Jeffrey Jones, who was pretty ubiquitous in sporting roles throughout the 80s and 90s until his career derailed after his 2002 arrest for soliciting naked photos from a minor. On the night of Howard's arrival, the Dynatechnics scientists had been using a laser spectroscope to examine the Alpha Centauri system. Unknown forces had hijacked the laser, which somehow hit Howard's home planet and accidentally dragged him to Earth. Dr. Jennings believes the spectroscope could be used to send Howard home. When Beverly, Howard, and Phil arrive at the Dynatechnics lab for Howard's return journey, they find the lab in chaos. The unknown force had hijacked the laser once again. As a technician played by character actor David Paymer explains, Dr. Jennings was sucked into the laser spectroscope and disappeared. Police Lieutenant Welker, played by CSI's Paul Guilfoyle, arrives to investigate. He arrests Howard for being an illegal alien, get it, but Howard and Beverly escape with help from a disheveled and confused Dr. Jennings. Sweaty and in pain, Dr. Jennings tells them that he spotted some kind of monstrous alien creature through the laser spectroscope. He's afraid it has taken possession of his body. They stop at a down-home diner that specializes in Cajun sushi. By now, Dr. Jennings has been fully possessed by an evil alien creature known as the Dark Overlord of the universe, and Beverly and Howard are very slow to catch on. The Dark Overlord is going to use the spectroscope to bring all his fellow Dark Overlords from the edges of the universe to conquer the Earth. Dr. Jennings, aka the Dark Overlord, demonstrates his superpowers by frying condiments with his laser eyes. This finally gets Howard and Beverly to take him seriously. When a bunch of truckers harass Beverly, Howard starts a brawl. The restaurant customers decide to butcher and eat Howard, which seems like a really weird thing for them to do. He's unintentionally saved by the Dark Overlord, who blows up the diner and kidnaps Beverly to use her body as a host for the other Dark Overlords. Howard breaks Phil out of police custody, and they steal an ultralight plane to rescue Beverly and stop the Dark Overlord. Zany hijinks of the "it's a duck flying an airplane" variety ensue. The Dark Overlord breaks into a nuclear reactor and charges himself up with radioactive material. He takes Beverly to the Dynatechnics lab and prepares to use the laser spectrometer to bring the rest of the Dark Overlords to Earth. Phil swipes a neutron disintegrator from the lab, and Howard uses it to drive the Dark Overlord out of Dr. Jennings' body. The Dark Overlord, now in its grotesque multi-tentacled true form, still tries to bring its fellow evil aliens to Earth. Howard is forced to destroy the laser spectrometer, thus ruining his only shot at a return to his home planet to save the Earth from an invasion. It ends with Howard as the manager of Cherry Bomb, where he rocks out on stage with Beverly to one final Thomas Dolby song titled Howard the Duck. I saw this film more than once in 1986 while babysitting for neighbors with a good cable package, and my 12-year-old self absolutely loved this film and would ardently defend it against its detractors. Unfortunately, I rewatched it a handful of months ago for the first time in decades, and I was crushed to realize I'd been so very wrong for so very many years. Howard the Duck has acquired some cult cachet over the years, and there are some people out there, mostly contrarian Gen Xers like myself, who have set forth good faith arguments as to why Howard the Duck is much better than its detractors would have you believe. I wish I could agree with them. I wish I still saw in this film whatever good qualities I saw in it when I was 12. I wish I could believe that Howard the Duck is an unpolished gem that, through a combination of poor marketing and audience cynicism, has received a reputation it doesn't deserve. But honestly, despite a few bright spots, Howard the Duck is extremely ungood, and the responsibility for that rests with the screenplay. There's a tendency to blame the failure of Howard the Duck on the duck suit, and particularly on the fact that in 1986, special effects technology wasn't yet at the stage where filmmakers could bring us a plausible-looking Howard. And yeah, despite the combined talents of actors, voice actors, puppeteers, designers, and special effects artists, the duck suit isn't good. Howard looks like an off-brand stuffed Donald Duck toy and not like the next stage in duck evolution. But if the script had been good, that wouldn't have mattered as much. Viewers could have grown used to the duck suit. Beautifully executed visual effects are a thing of joy that can really elevate a film. But if you've got a good script, brilliant visual effects aren't necessary for the success of it. However, the reverse isn't true. If the Howard the Duck filmmakers had been working with state-of-the-art 2020 visual effects technology, or even if they'd been lucky enough to cast a genuine, honest-to-God, 3-foot-high anthropomorphic duck with perfect English skills and a degree from the Yale School of Drama, it wouldn't have made that much of a difference, because that script was dead on arrival. This is a film that doesn't trust its viewers to get a joke unless they are pounded repeatedly over the head and shoulders with it. For instance, when Howard and Phil crash their ultralight plane in a lake, the joke is that Howard is a duck who cannot swim, which is worthy of a chuckle. All you need to do is show the plane crashing, show Howard floundering to stay afloat, get the quick laugh, and move on. But instead, we get a dragged-out moment where Howard yells, "I can't swim," and Phil replies, "I've never met a duck that couldn't swim," and all of a sudden, a throwaway laugh has become belabored and unfunny. And that's how most of the jokes play out. Watching Howard the Duck is exhausting. It's like watching a stand-up comedian who's bombing on stage and who keeps repeating punchlines and pausing for laughs when no laughs are coming. And it doesn't help that the third act devolves into a flabby and endless chase sequence. The actors are trying, but no one is able to make that script work, except maybe Jeffrey Jones, who's off doing his own creepy thing as the Dark Overlord, and actually manages to make that character kind of scary and funny. Tim Robbins is a gifted comedic actor, and yet Phil is a total dud of a character. If Tim Robbins is unable to find the humor in your dialogue, it's a sign that your comedy script has deep fundamental problems. There are jokes that work. The Cajun sushi diner makes me laugh, and the same goes for the Satan Sluts biker gang. The film is best when it leans into the weirdness of the source material and allows itself to get a little bit unhinged and a little bit sleazy. But that's at odds with the family-friendly, PG-rated, action-packed romp that this film wants to be. The Cleveland of Howard the Duck seems like a trashy, seedy, dangerous place that also looks like a lot of fun. Also, the women of Cherry Bomb are great, and they liven up the film whenever they're on the screen. They remind me of a live-action version of Jem and the Holograms, and that is surely a good thing. As ridiculous as it is to think of it this way, Howard the Duck was the very first Marvel film. Yes, there was a 1944 Captain America serial, but that was from the time when Marvel Comics was still known as Timely Comics, and to my mind it doesn't count. Honestly, the climax of Howard the Duck, in which Howard makes a noble sacrifice to prevent a swarm of alien invaders from invading the Earth via a portal in the sky, is pretty much a lo-fi version of the climax of the first Avengers film. Indeed, Howard the Duck is now a full-fledged member of the official Marvel Cinematic Universe. The character puts in blink-and-you'll-miss-them appearances in Guardians of the Galaxy, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and Avengers Endgame. Speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy, the success of that particular Marvel film should put to rest any argument that it's simply too difficult to pull off a character like Howard, i.e. a foul-mouthed, wisecracking loose cannon who also happens to be an anthropomorphic version of a cute little animal. Guardians of the Galaxy's Rocket Raccoon was a highlight of that film thanks to a clever script. And he showed us what we missed by not having a film version of Howard the Duck that did justice to that comic book character. Because the worst part of Howard the Duck is Howard the Duck, who suffers the most from the lame jokes and the belabored punchlines, and from the film's unsuccessful attempts to transform a cult comic character into a crowd-pleasing action hero. Next time, we're going nowhere fast, with Diane Lane, Rick Moranis, and a creepy young Willem Dafoe in the 1984 rock musical Streets of Fire. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope to see you then.